Hi, everyone, and welcome. We're glad to see you.
Happy Tuesday.
Yeah, we were off last week, so because I was away, actually.
Little R&R up in
Little
the
R&R
mountains.
up in the mountains with the whole fam.
Yeah, the mountains is like the happening place to be right now. It's where everyone wants to be. Get out of civilization, out of the cities.
It is. I mean, it was kind of nice. We didn't do anything because there was really nowhere to go because everything was kind of closed down. But we played games and did stuff all together. It was kind of fun. It was fun.
Yeah,
That's
a
what happens
little.
when you have a big family, your own party all the time.
That's right. And Deni does have a big family.
Yeah, and we have another one coming
Oh, good.
in
Good, good,
3 weeks. 3 weeks.
Wow. So it's your son and daughter-in-law, right?
Yeah, we're gonna have a little boy coming. Can't wait. But anyway, that's not what we're
Good.
here to talk about. I could talk about that all day long, but that's not why we're here. Um,
You're
well, the
right.
CARES Act 1 has expired. um, so that eviction moratorium is kind of ended. There are some localities and states that are carrying it further and longer. But with that being said, as landlords, it's time that we kind of get some ways to protect our rents because look, this happened out of nowhere and who knows what could happen again. So if nothing else, let's learn how to at least protect ourselves during these unforeseen circumstances.
Yeah. So, collecting rent has been a challenge for a lot of landlords over the last 4 months. Partially because the unemployment rate has been so high, right? And you've got the CARES Act did prevent evictions on a lot of properties, so that some landlords were stuck with tenants that weren't paying rents. And
Right.
then, like you said, Denny, a lot of states and cities declared their own eviction moratoriums. So we're going to talk today about ways that landlords can protect their rental income even during this pandemic, which doesn't seem to be going away. I mean, we were talking about it 3 months ago. We're still talking about it now. I think we were all hoping that by this time, things would have eased up a little bit, but here we are. So, Denny, let's talk first about what you can do before even signing a lease with a tenant to ensure or to get the best possible odds of being able to collect your rent.
Well, I mean, the obvious is tenant screening, but it's not just tenant screening. I mean, so many people do this and they still do it. And there's so much advice out there saying, don't just do this, but it's done anyway. But tenant screening is more than just credit, criminal, and eviction reports, although they are important.
Starting point,
Right.
not
And
the end point.
pay attention. You're going to get a lot of stories. Somebody is going to tell you that, oh, in 2000, whatever, I did this, and that's why that happened. And, but be careful because, you want to make sure you're going to get your rent. That's the name of the game. So you need to be very, precise when you're looking at them and be very choosy. The other thing is you want to contact employers. Don't just go by what they're writing down. Contact the employer, see if you can talk to somebody in HR, find out how long that person has been there. If you are renting to somebody who hasn't been in that particular, job for too long, see where they've been before, check the prior employers, and make sure it's kind of the same field so that you don't see a job hopping kind of path going on here.
Yeah, and you want to verify their income as well,
Right.
and ensure that it aligns with what they reported on their rental application. So, someone could say on their rental application that they make $10,000 a month, but if their pay stubs say that they make $5,000 a month, then there's a missing $5,000 there that you got to figure out where that's coming from if it exists at all. So, yeah.
And if there's going to be a lie somewhere, you don't want it to be there, and you don't want to be anywhere. So if you start to see something that's not lining up, that don't take the chance because you will have a problem later. Everybody says, nah, this one, they just ran through hard times, and there are people that have that, but they'll be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk to an applicant's employer, see if you can talk to their direct supervisor as well and ask, what kind of worker are they? How conscientious are they? Do they show up on time every day for work? Are they a pleasure to work with? Are they trustworthy? Are they reliable? And, the supervisor they're not legally obligated to answer those questions for you, but many times they will.
Right.
So, it makes a good character reference for how reliable and conscientious the renter is.
Absolutely. And then, of course, you want to contact their current and prior landlords. I would go as far as driving by their current residence. That's going to let you know how well they take care of a property. Look for little clues when they come to see your place. Look at their cars. That is like a number one. If you see somebody that doesn't take very well care of their car, they're probably not going to take too good care of your apartment or your rental. So be careful with that. And the biggest is see how their children behave. I have this has come so true for me. Seriously, I have shown a house or a rental, and the kids were like running all over the place and touching things, and just there was no supervision at all. And I guarantee you that those same parents are going to be in your rental, and you're going to have complaints from neighbors if you have them, or they're just going to be ripping stuff off walls or whatever. So be careful to see how the parents are dealing with the children while they're running around looking at the place too. And what about you, Brian? You have any other additional tips?
Well, yeah, as far as tenant screening, you touched on going by their home to take a look at their home. And I just want to expand on that point a little bit, that's a great opportunity for you to, find an excuse to go visit them at their home. And this should be the last thing you do, by the way, if everything else checks out, because this obviously takes some of your time. You have to go out of your way to go visit their home. But find an excuse to meet them at their home. Maybe it's just to walk through the lease agreement, but take a look at how they treat their current home, because that's how they will treat your property. Mm-hmm. So if it's a total mess, if there is dirty food all over the kitchen and the living room, if they have clothes strewn everywhere and toys strewn everywhere and it's just dirty and messy, that is what they're going to do to your property. So you can see a perfect crystal ball of exactly what they're going to do in your house if you go and see their current house. So. And
the only other thing that just struck me is with these type of issues like this pandemic that just came up, and obviously not every renter is going to have a great savings account, but it isn't bad to find out or ask for bank statements to have proof that they do have money saved up, so that if, God forbid, something like this happens, or it is happening, that they're going to have backup. So you're not going to hear, sorry, I have no rent. And
yeah.
I have no
Financially stable people have an emergency fund of at least 1 month's worth of expenses in it, preferably more like 2, 3, 4, even 6. But that is just a fact. Financially stable people have an emergency fund, and people who don't have an emergency fund, that's a red flag that they're not very financially secure. So,
right.
Well, so we did include a link to where you can run tenant screening reports for applicants, credit reports, criminal reports, and nationwide eviction reports. So we listed that in the comments. Deni, anything else you want to touch on when it comes to tenant screening and avoiding unstable renters or unreliable renters?
Just pretty much what we said, and hold on to the rental applications, because that has a lot of information you can use for collection later on.
Absolutely.
So Brian, talk to us about...
Moving on from tenant screening, one of the other things you can do for your to incentivize your tenants to pay their rent on time once they've already moved in is you can and should charge late fees, but beyond late fees, you should also report their rent payments to the credit bureaus, because it adds another layer of incentive for them to pay their rent on time. So it rewards them for paying their rent on time, and it penalizes them for paying the rent late, or if they have to be evicted, if there's a charge off. All of that gets reported to the credit bureaus and hurts their credit. So it's both a carrot and a stick to incentivize your tenants to pay their rent on time.
And for a tenant that eventually, and many are looking to eventually buy a home, that's even, more of a plus. I mean, they'll leave you eventually, but at least they'll pay the rent while they're with you.
Yeah, and I've actually found that when you're screening tenants, check and see how they react when you offer to report their rent payments to the credit bureaus, because reliable people will be excited about that. They're like, oh, great, that's a chance for me to improve my credit. Unreliable people will freak out about that, right? Yeah. So how they react when you tell them that you will be reporting their rent payments to the credit bureaus, if they react positively, it means that they know they are someone who pays their bills on time, and they are relishing the opportunity to improve their credit even more. Someone who does not always pay their bills on time, they're going to get a little nervous about that.
Right.
So, and Tara's remarking here that we finish each other's sentences, which
Yeah.
we've known each other for 12 years now. We've known each other for a long
Wow.
time.
Has it been
So
that long? Wow.
it has been that long, since 2008. So,
Man.
and so as for where you can report with your rent payments to the credit bureaus, it's something we will be offering. We are going to be relaunching our online rent collection service over the next month or two, hopefully, inshallah, as they say. And we will be adding that as a feature that is free for landlords, reporting the rent payments to the credit bureaus.
Right.
So,
Absolutely. So let's talk about rent default insurance. There's a lot of polar opposite feelings about this. So just go into a little bit about what it is, Brian, because a lot of people don't know.
sure. So rent default insurance is exactly what it sounds like. You are taking out an insurance policy that guarantees that the tenants will pay the rent. And if the tenants default on the rent, then you file a claim with the insurance company, and the insurance company steps in and pays the rent on their behalf until you have them evicted. So you don't suffer any loss in rental income. So
Even
you're
during a
insuring,
pandemic.
yeah. So you insure your rental income basically. You insure against losses, which is, I think, is great. I have used rent default insurance before, and I got to tell you, Deni, the people who don't understand why anyone would buy rent default insurance, those are landlords who have never had tenants default on them. So they should
Probably.
count themselves lucky, because I mean, as someone who has had many tenants default on them, I owned some lower end rental properties in Baltimore City and struggled with rent defaults in those neighborhoods. I got to tell you, it is such a load off your shoulders when you know that even if the tenant doesn't pay the rent, you will still get your rent check no matter what. So,
And there's, you say, oh, well, we're screening and we're going to report rent payments. So why do we need this? But this is a lot of protection also for good tenants that have bad things happen, like health issues. And because let's face it, that could happen and it could
yeah, it's
wipe
not just
out
for
even a
deadbeats.
savings. Yeah, not for just, yeah,
Not
absolutely
just for
not.
deadbeats.
So it's an extra layer of protection.
Yeah. So Christina asked here, is it expensive, the rent default insurance? And it's not expensive. It typically costs between $350 and $500 a year. The amount of the annual premium depends on the amount of the rent. So the higher the rent, the higher the premium, as one might expect. So, Christina, we added a link there in the comments where you can go and get a quote for rent default insurance. You can check it out. She also asked about requirements. Do they ask for documents? So they ask for a copy of the lease agreement. They
Mm-hmm.
ask for a copy of the tenant screening reports and a copy of the rental application, I believe. And I think that's it. Deni, can you think of any other documentation that they ask for?
I believe that's it too. That's it.
Yeah, I think that's it. And yeah, so she says, thanks, Deni. Yeah, so rent default insurance, I can't speak highly enough about it. It is worth every penny. And, if nothing else, you get to go to sleep at night knowing that you're going to get your rent come hell or high water, right?
And frankly, if you're evaluating your property and you're evaluating the costs, you throw those costs in there and you're still going to be okay, right?
Yeah, so build it into your cash flow analysis when you're looking at properties. Just build that in as an expense when you're running the numbers in a rental cash flow calculator, and which we have a free one of those, which I will put a quick link to here. Deni, is there anything else that landlords need to know about their protecting their rental income, especially during tumultuous times like this?
Well, I just think, using a good, strong landlord protective lease that spells out everything so the landlord knows what and where they can go. I mean, even with an eviction moratorium, that just means the eviction itself is on hold, but that doesn't mean the procedures and the things that you have to do until that point are on hold. And if you have a good lease that spells that out and you follow those protocols, you're actually protecting yourself. And when these things are lifted, you're ready to go. So I think that's probably
Yeah, a
it.
lot of landlords underestimate the importance of a very protective lease agreement. A protective lease agreement for landlords can mean the difference between being able to deduct from the security deposit. It can be the difference between being able to collect from each of the tenants individually. There are a million clauses that good landlord protective lease agreements include. And of course, we offer those on our website, but we're not the only people that sell, landlord protective lease agreements. We do have a question here from Denisa. She says, "What about if I didn't do the credit report to the tenants? Will she be able to get insurance?" Deni, do you know the answer to that question?
I'm assuming you mean they're a tenant in place and you want to start it up after you already accepted them. I think they would take that on a case-by-case basis. I would go ahead and go to the link and let them know all that. There's different scenarios and answers for each. But for the most part, they're going to want to see some type of credit.
Yeah, and it's never too late to run these background checks on a tenant, even if they're already living with you. So that is a possibility as well. If you're interested in getting rent default insurance, and if you talk to them and they do require those background checks, then you could just run them now. So
absolutely.
All right. Well, Deni, anything else you want to comment on before we wrap this up?
Just one thing. I know we talk a lot about protecting ourselves against tenants, and most tenants are pretty good. And I've seen a lot of goodness come out of this pandemic. I've seen landlords going out of their way to help tenants, and I've seen tenants genuinely try to do what they can, even if they're in a bad situation. So we have this landlord group of 30,000, and sometimes we hear the horrific stories, but there are a ton of amazing stories as well of just good humanity. I had to add that in there. That's it.
No, that's good. It's good to remember, it's all too easy to fall into the trap of thinking about landlord-tenant relationships as being combative. But when done right, this should not be a combative relationship. It should be a cooperative relationship between a service provider and a client. So
exactly.
All right. Well, on that note, let us know what you guys want us to talk about next week. This is more about you guys than it is about us. So,
yes.
You can send us messages on Facebook. You can send us emails through our website. We have a contact page on the website, or just email me or Deni. Our emails are out there. Brian@sparkrental.com, Denise@sparkrental.com, and let us know what you want to hear more about. We'll see you next Tuesday at 2:00 Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, and have a great week.
See you later.